Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie, and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world we're living in. So here we are waiting for the golden buzzer. When are the jury going to come to a verdict in this case? I've been sort of looking, every time I sort of woke up through the night, which was quite often because it's so hot. I was checking to see if there'd been any news. No news got up this morning. And, most of the sort of live blogs that we've been looking at, they're not live at the moment because there's nothing to talk about until the buzzer goes. And then when the buzzer goes to say that the jury have received a verdict, have come to a verdict, all hell's going to get let loose, isn't it? Everyone will be scrabbling back to the courtroom. Well, probably people have sat in the courtroom all day today waiting for that buzzer to ring. So this is what we're talking about. We're on verdict watch at the moment, aren't we? Verdict watch. We're waiting for that buzzer. And that buzzer will bring the jury back into the courtroom and they will give their verdict in this trial that's gone on. Feels like years, doesn't it? Feels like this trial has gone on for years. Never mind months. It has 2 months, I think it's been. It's a real mammoth trial. But do you know what's important issues at stake? The lives of 3 people. 3 people were taken away. And, the more I think about it, I just think, gosh, please let these people get the justice that they deserve. And then, of course, Ian, who went through such hell. These are, Gail, Don, Heather, and Ian. It's about them. It's not even about Erin, really, is it? I mean, one thing we have learned about Erin, whatever happens if she's found guilty or not, she's a total liar, isn't she? She lies about anything. She has no compunction about lying about anything, even about having cancer. She's a person, she just reacts to whatever she thinks is in her interests for people to hear. I love them. I didn't know them. I love them. She's a terrible actress. That's another thing we've learned about them. Erin only cares about herself. That's how it feels to me. I haven't changed that opinion. In fact, if anything, throughout this trial, I've become more convinced this is the face of the real Erin Patterson. But as the judge said, as Justice Beale said, being a liar does not make you a murderer, does it? Just because she's a serial liar and a narcissist and all those things does not mean that she murdered these people. And that's what the jury have got to take into consideration. The jury have got to decide, have the prosecution done enough? In their 50-odd witnesses that they supplied, experts, people from the hospital, toxicology experts, the person that had to do the investigation to where the mushrooms came from, child protection services, all these people that testified against Erin in the trial, over 50 witnesses. So the jury have got to decide, are they legitimate witnesses? Is what they said true? Or is the one defense witness, which was Erin herself, the known liar, is she the one to believe? I see sort of keep vacillating between, this has got to be a guilty verdict. And then I think, no, what if they find her not guilty? Or, it's a difficult one. It's going to take the jury some time, really, isn't it? Because, and it deserves their time, because we don't want a mistrial either. We don't want any allegations by Erin's legal team do with that it wasn't a fair trial, or the jury did something wrong, or blah de blah de blah de blah, because Erin's bound to come up with some more shenanigans, even if she is found guilty, isn't she? So before we start, though, I'd just like to say thank you to you all. Thank you so much. I'm feeling very grateful this morning for everything. I had a bit of a bit of a day yesterday. Nothing had terrible happened. I'll tell you what happened. Be prepared for a little bit of waffle. Sorry about that. But I was thinking about what when we watched that video about Stefan Stearns, and that ridiculous doctor on that YouTube channel said that he was an empath. Remember? And it struck. I'll tell you why I've been thinking about that, because yesterday I was scrolling through Facebook like you do, and I came across a post totally by accident. Just, you go on one post and then you see somebody's made a comment or a post about something else, and I ended up, unfortunately, though it is, and I may cry. Now, this is how I know what an empath is. An empath, when you know real emotion, you sense it as an empath, and you feel it as if you are that person. So somebody had put a post on about, actually, I know this, I know the woman, she was a student of mine, I mean, literally years ago, maybe 20 years ago. And she went off, a couple of my students went on to make dog rescues, these Podenco dogs. Like my dog, Riley. He's a Podenco. Let me put his emoji on, because they've got these massive pointy ears. And here's Riley. Riley is a Podenco, and the characteristic of Podencos, of course, is the pointy ears. And they are Spanish hunting dogs, and they're treated abysmally by the hunters. They're not treated as living things. I mean, I'm sure there are some hunters that treat their dogs well, but if they're lucky enough to even get a life, because quite often after the hunting season finishes, so that the hunters don't have to feed them, and because there's just so many of them, they hang them from trees or just abandon them. It's just disgusting, really disgusting what they do. Anyway, this friend of mine, or this ex-student of mine, and we were friends when she lived in this area. She's gone to a different area now. She ended up, I don't know how it happened, though. I think this story has something to do with how it happened. She ended up opening up a Podenco rescue centre up in the mountains somewhere. And she saves these dogs and looks after them and rehomes them all over the world. And, I had another student who did the same thing. I've had two students who did that. Anyway, so this post, I hadn't seen this post because, to be perfectly honest, I don't really follow dog things anymore because I found them too upsetting, too upsetting. And I've had to hide a lot of posts just because, and this is the reason why. So yesterday she'd put a post, or it popped up on somebody else's. I don't know how it popped up. You know what Facebook's like, things pop up. And talking about a dog, how she got into dog rehoming, because this dog, in a big way, if you like, this dog was called Blanca. And it come to the anniversary of when she'd taken this dog. The hunter had brought the dog along, paid the euthanasia fee because he wanted the dog put down. The dog was, over 10 anyway, and I suppose maybe she was lucky to have that many years of life. She'd probably been bred and bred and bred because that's what they do. So they even kept hold of her. It's probably because she was a female dog. She could give puppies. He's got a constant supply of Podencos for his hunting. And she was brought along to my friend, and she was in difficulties. Right, I've just got to warn you, this is going to upset you. I cried for 2 hours, in fact, more than 2 hours yesterday. I just couldn't stop crying for hours. I couldn't even put a response on it for hours. And he brought this dog along, and this dog was suffering, you could tell. And my friend just was, oh God, need to get it to the vet as soon as possible. And made a nice comfy bed for her in the back of the car or the van or whatever it was, and raced off to the vet. Gave her cuddles. Sorry. But so this little dog, though, she died before they got to the vets. But Lee, I think she probably like just thought, oh, thank God someone's looking after me. I don't know. But anyway, she gave up. Just, what sort of a life did she have? And just so her reward, for all those years of service to that twonk was just to be, taken off, paid a euthanasia fee. Not my problem anymore. You sort it out. He didn't even take that dog to the vet and be with it or comfort it or, anything like that. Anyway, so this was the post I read. So like 3 hours later, I was still crying. I had mascara all over my face. And I just could. That's what being an empath is. Because you can feel that emotion. You feel it. It's like I'd gone through that. That's how it felt to me. Anyway, that little dog, at least Blanca, she had some comfort in her last hours of her life, but she will have had a difficult life. She won't have had any love in her life, but she had a bit of love those last couple of hours or whatever. So, yeah. I forgot why I started talking about this now. Why did I start talking? Oh, because that's why yesterday I had a bit of a day, because it did put me in a bit of a funny mood then for the rest of the day. And she's still that dog is like right there in my head. I can't stop thinking about it because she looked so much like Riley as well. And Riley was lucky. He was rescued from an animal hoarder's house. There were 40 animals in the house that Riley was rescued from. He had parvo. He was one of a big litter of puppies, or at least 4 puppies. Only 2 of them survived. I think there were 6 puppies, actually. The others all died of parvovirus. My dog, Riley, survived. Somebody looked after him, luckily, and he did survive, and he's fine now, obviously. So, there are horrible things, aren't they, go on in the world as far as animal treatment is concerned. I just never can understand it, how anybody could treat an animal. Well, you can't understand how anyone can treat anyone badly, really. But, these like vulnerable things like animals, children, old people, etc. So some people are not right, are they? And this is it. And they're not only men. So, this is how I feel about Erin. People looking for a motive for Erin, but she didn't need a motive. If she's got it in her head that any slight, if she just felt slighted, felt aggrieved, she didn't need a motive like for money or anything, because she's got money, so money wouldn't have been a motive. Obviously, sex wasn't a motive, unless it was just anger towards, jealousy towards Simon, possibly. But yeah, so you don't need a motive, and you don't need a conventional motive to commit. People do weird things. Some people just don't feel it. Anyway, we're waiting for allegedly, because we've got to wait for the verdict, haven't we? She hasn't been found guilty yet. She might not be found guilty. So anyway, thank you. So I am feeling very grateful today. I had that day. That's why I started telling that story. I had a bit of a funny day yesterday, just because of that, literally. But I've woke up this morning feeling grateful that my dogs haven't got that life. You can only do your little bit. I've got 3 rescue dogs. I can't rescue all the dogs in the world. I can't even do a rescue thing like my friend has done, because I'm just not. I'm not fit for purpose. I'd be a blubbering wreck all the time. You've got to be. You've got to be empathetic. I'm not saying she's not empathetic, but you've got to be able to, do things as well. As she's a very practical person. She's always been a lover of dogs, especially Rottweilers. And now she's looking after Podencos. Thank God I said to her in the end, when I finally pulled myself together, I managed to put a response. And I just said, I don't know how you do it, but thank God you do it. Thank God for people like her that rescue these dogs. Thank God. Okay. So thank you for being a subscriber. If you are, if you're not, why not? Why not subscribe? Thank you for liking. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for watching. Thank you especially for caring about Don, Gail, Heather and Ian in this particular case, but thank you for caring about all the victims that I talk about in my videos. Thank you to those of you who are members. Thank you to those of you who've bought me a Ko-fi, sent me a super chat, PayPal'd me, sent me a nice email, sent me information by email, or left a nice message. Thank you for any positive contribution you make to my channel. And hello, lovely lurkers. How are you all this morning? Hope you're all well. Hi to all you loathsome lurkers as well. And now I'm going to go. Oh, and hi to Replay Crew. Thank you for watching. And I'm going to go into the chat now. Now that I've had a really good waffle. Not an edible one. Ah, dear me. Can't help but waffle sometimes. But yeah, if you know, thank God for these people that rescue animals, isn't it? You know, I couldn't do it. I'd love to do it. I want to do it. I love animals, but I couldn't cope with the sad side of it. As I say, I've even had to hide the wombat page now because one of them one of them died, and I just couldn't cope with it. You know, I like watching the wombat page on Facebook because it always, it's nice to see the wombats being rescued. But when they bring a sad story of a wombat that didn't make it, I just can't cope with it. They're just pathetic, really. Okay, let's have a look who's in the chat. Hi, Jonathan. Hi, Tracy. Hi, Maria. Hi, Lily. Hi, Angel. Hi, David. Hi, Maria likes waffle. Thank you. Thanks for putting your waffles up. Oh, made everybody else cry now, probably. Hey, Lily. Hey, Jane. 10 out of 10 waffle, yeah. Hi, Yvonne. Good morning. Okay, so what's going on with Erin? So, as I say, we're waiting for this buzzer. The jury, not the jury, the courtroom is open every day. And in the courtroom are the judge, and I would imagine the defense counsel, the prosecution. If they're not actually in the courtroom, they won't be far away. They're probably in the coffee shop, aren't they? Because we know how they like their coffees. So they're probably all sitting in the coffee shop, not far from the courtroom. They certainly won't go far, because as soon as that buzzer rings, that will mean that the verdict is ready. So, they're not going to want to have travelled far away. So the jury are sitting, I think it's from 10:30 to 4:30 or something like that. We'll have a look at it in a minute. So let's just have a look at some of the people that are involved in this case. Of course, there's the victims, the most important people. Yeah, Don, Gail, Heather and Ian. There's Erin. She's the Lady Macbeth. There's the prosecution counsel, Nanette Rogers, Dr. Nanette Rogers. She presented 50 witnesses, including experts, including family, including Facebook friends of Erin's, Ian, of course, the victim, etc. 50 witnesses, that's a lot. And I've started thinking about that. I think maybe that's actually, the jury cannot, they cannot forget that she called 50 witnesses, whereas Mr. Mandy only had Erin to call. Not even a character witness, not an expert to confirm anything he said. This is a similar dehydrator to the one that Erin dumped at the tip. This, of course, was Funky Tom, who's the mushroom expert who spoke So yeah, Mr. Mandy didn't bring any mushroom experts to talk to. Now, the other thing that I was thinking, from the pictures I've seen, photos of death cap mushrooms, they're massive. They don't, I thought they looked quite like, you know, when we've seen, like if you look at this picture, you could see that you could look at that picture and think, oh, that does look like a normal mushroom. But we can't see how big it is. They're bloody massive. They're massive. You wouldn't get a big a normal mushroom the size that these mushrooms are. And then someone left a comment on one of my videos that they live in that area, and they said death cap mushrooms are very distinctive. You would know it was a death cap mushroom, and they've got a distinctive smell. It's just not true that Erin didn't realise they were death cap mushrooms. Simply is not true. We're back to the realms of Erin's lies there. I don't know if that was presented better to the jury, you know, to show them, you know, actual scale of death cap mushroom. Maybe what might have been a good idea for the prosecution to present would have been a dummy death cap mushroom, the size of it and what it looks like, so that the jury could see clearly that there's no way that this woman could have mistaken those death cap mushrooms for normal mushrooms. It's impossible. So, you know, just lies exposed. So, of course, that's Erin. Here's the judge. Justice Beale, I've put the wig on him. He's not wearing a wig. Ian, who's come to the actual trial because he was lucky enough to survive. He seems to be very healthy now, thankfully. So, yeah. And what else? So let's have a look at a little video that's, so of course, all the news items, the newspapers, etc., they're talking about this wait now for the buzzer. And I can tell you the buzzer did not happen last night or, you know, Monday. What day is it today? So today's Tuesday. I know I get confused with the Australian time. So Monday, Justice Beale finished off his summing up and the jury went out to deliberate, but they only had an hour or so, or a couple of hours before it was the end of the day. So they've been back in on Tuesday, which Australian Tuesday, which was like last night as far as Spain is concerned. And they've deliberated all day Tuesday and they haven't come up with a verdict. The buzzer has not been pressed. So is that good for Erin, bad for Erin, or is it just because there's so much to think about in this trial? I mean, to me, I feel that, you know, the fact that they're deliberating means that they're not all in agreement from day one, are they? You know, because they could have literally gone into that courtroom, sat down, elected a jury foreman, and the foreperson would have said, right, what, you know, gone along everyone, and everybody might have said guilty, or everybody might have said not guilty. So there's not a unanimous verdict so far. I think we can, or there'll probably be a couple of don't knows, you know, you know, so there's a long way to go, and there's a lot of evidence to go through in this case. And of course, they've been sent off with all the evidence, pictures, the judges summing up. They've got that all there with them, but they're only allowed to deliberate actually in the courtroom. So now they'll have been gone off back to their hotel rooms, but they're not allowed to talk outside of court times, if you like. And they have got jury keepers looking after them and making sure that they don't do that. Because there's going to be some jurors are going to, you know, there's 12 of them. So some of them, there might be little groups, you know, 3 that get on really well, have got a lot in common, or, another 4 that all like football, so they've got that in common or whatever. And they're going to get together in little groups, but it's up to the jury keeper to make sure they don't talk about the case. So they can talk about what they like outside of the courtroom, of course, and they're all in the hotel together. They can't go home, but they're not allowed to discuss the case outside of the courtroom. And if they did, that really would cause a mistrial or something like that. So I hope they don't. I hope the jury keepers and the jurors stick to what they're supposed to do, because we just want this case finished. It'd be awful for it all to have to go through it all again, not only for us but for Ian and the families, etc. So let's have a look at a couple. Let's see how the news are talking about this.
Country later this hour. Well, all eyes are on the country town of Morwell this afternoon, waiting for a verdict in the murder case that has gripped the world. Jurors are right now in their second day of deliberations in Erin Patterson's trial. 7 News presenter Mike Amor is live for us at the Latrobe Valley Law Courts. Mike, good afternoon. The group spent their first night holed up in a hotel.
Hello, Tash. The jury of 7 men and 5 women have been sequestered, which means they can't go home until they reach a verdict. They've been told they cannot watch coverage like our own. They have limited access to the media. They've even been told not to talk about the case outside the jury pool room. They've been deliberating for about an hour and a half today. They're expected to take a lunch break at 1 o'clock. They deliberated for 2 hours yesterday, but obviously were unable to reach a verdict. They spent 40 days listening to 50 witnesses, including the accused herself, Erin Patterson, as well as Ian Wilkinson, the sole surviving guest of that deadly luncheon back in July 2023. So when will they reach their verdict, and what is happening in that jury room? Truth is, we don't know. We'll never know. The first indication, though, that they will have a verdict, there is a buzzer in that jury room. They'll use that to indicate to the judge that they either have a question or they've reached a verdict. The judge was very specific to the jury yesterday, saying they must reach a unanimous verdict, but he did say they do not have to find a motive as to why Erin Patterson would want to kill her in-laws. Tash, this is a question about whether she did it, not why she did it. And as soon as we hear that buzzer from the jury pool room, we'll bring you live, uninterrupted, rolling coverage of the Erin Patterson verdict.
Can't wait.
Mike Amor joining us there live from Morwell. Thank you.
Yeah, and I mean it. I just cannot wait for this verdict. And as I say, that's just me. God knows how the people that are actually involved in this case feel. So let's have a look, see if we've got... So, of course, the other news yesterday was that they put up the screens outside Erin Patterson's home, so that if she does come home, or if, as somebody said, maybe it's in case they want to move the furniture out or whatever's going to happen in that house, that nothing can be seen. Let's just have a look at another
Did
video.
Erin Patterson intend to kill 4 people at lunch, poisoning them with death cap mushrooms? Or was it an innocent mistake? The weight of deciding did she or didn't she now rests with 12 strangers. The jurors have sat through 9 weeks of evidence, with Erin herself taking the stand. One thing is certain: whatever choice they make, it must be unanimous. Sam Cucchiara joins me now. Good evening to you, Sam. The judge spent a long time giving instructions to the jury. Is that usual, and what did he ask them to consider?
Evening, Ali. Well, the judge has spent several days delivering his instructions to the jury here in Morwell, essentially summing up all of the evidence they've heard in this case and also stepping them through the legal principles that they must use when considering whether Erin Patterson is guilty or not guilty of these murders. The judge has also told them that even though Erin Patterson took to the witness box in her very own triple murder trial, it's not up to her to prove her innocence, but rather it's up to prosecutors to prove that she's guilty beyond reasonable doubt. The judge has also urged jurors to put any sympathies or any prejudices out of their mind. He's told them that this is a court of law. It's not a court of morals. Now, there are two very different versions of what happened at Erin Patterson's home back on July 29.
Now, you know, it's not a court of morals. She's not being charged with lying. I know that. But morals come into it. Morals do come into it. Because if somebody is a serial liar, it does have an influence on the case, because it does have an influence on whether you believe what they say or not. It's had an influence or not. You know, it's hard if somebody's been lying all the time and then suddenly says, yes, they were all lies, but I'm not lying now, does influence how you feel about their credibility. So although it isn't a court of morals, she isn't being charged with being a liar. Luckily for her, because I think the jury would have come back a lot quicker than this. It does have an influence. All those, the way she is and the way she's also called other people liars, because everybody else is a liar now except her, apparently. So I think, you know, I know what the judge is saying. Obviously, just because she's a liar, it doesn't make her a murderer, but it makes her testimony less believable. It does. I think that's a fact. I don't think that's, you know, speculation. Somebody tells you 9 lies about something and then suddenly says, oh yeah, I know I told all those lies, but this time I'm telling the truth. Of course you're less likely to believe them, and to be honest, they're less likely to be telling the truth if they're a proven liar.
2023. On one case, on one hand, you've got the prosecution case that says that Erin Patterson deliberately laced her now infamous beef Wellington meal with death cap mushrooms in a bid to wipe out her estranged husband's family. Police claim in the days that followed, she then spun a web of elaborate lies in order to conceal this evil plan. On the other hand, you've got Erin Patterson. She admits, yes, that she lied to police in the days after this lunch, but she says that's not because she was a murderer, but rather because she panicked and thought that she'd be blamed over these deaths. The jury certainly does have its work cut out for it. There are 125 pieces of evidence that they must consider, as well as the testimonies of countless witnesses they've heard from during this marathon trial.
So, Sam, what happens from here? Because this isn't a normal case.
It's certainly far from normal, Ali. I've been covering courts and crime for almost a decade, and I've not seen a case like this before that has garnered so much international media attention. The jury of 12 was sent out to deliberate.
Well, it's certainly, you know, a trial, a 1 in a million type trial, isn't it? You know, it is bizarre, completely bizarre. You know, and as this reporter's saying, he's never seen anything like it. I don't think any of us have.
Around lunchtime today. Right now, they're checking into their accommodation for the night. So they've been sequestered during these deliberations, which essentially means they're being cut off from the outside world. And that's to try and stop any influence from external sources while they are deliberating. As for how long this will go on, how long they'll deliberate before reaching that unanimous verdict, that is anybody's guess. They'll deliberate every day here at court, apart from Sunday. Now, once they are ready with that verdict, that unanimous verdict, there is a buzzer in the jury room. They'll press that buzzer. That will alert courtroom staff. Everybody will pack that.
This buzzer is like, oh my God. And, you know, it's bound to go off at the least time you're expecting it. You know, people will be relaxing, having their lunch or whatever, or they'll be thinking, oh, I think I might just pop home because it's and then suddenly it'd be buzz, you know, it'd just be so unpredictable. It just adds to the whole drama, doesn't it, of this really bizarre case. But at the end of the day, this is a triple murder case. It's about as serious as it gets. And well, you know, I don't know if the longer it goes looks better for Erin. Now, I remember this with the Richard Allen trial. Do you remember the Delphi murders? Because at first it seemed to be taking a long time. At first, to me, I thought, oh God, that looks like they're going to find him not guilty. But then when it goes past another bit of time, you start to think that, oh no, maybe not. Maybe it's going to go the other way. So the thing is, where this case is where there's not a smoking gun, if you like, nobody saw Erin actually putting the death cap mushrooms in the beef Wellington. So it's a lot of circumstantial evidence, a lot of witnesses. There's so much to digest in this case. So it probably will take that bit more talking out. I don't know if anybody would be really thinking not guilty, to be honest. I think there may be some people in that jury thinking, don't know. I'm thinking, because of the judge's instructions were so lengthy, they're probably plodding through that, thinking, have the prosecution proved it beyond a reasonable doubt? I think that'll be the issue in the jury, not necessarily whether they think she's guilty. Probably most of them do, but they'll be going through to make sure, because it's a big decision. It's a big responsibility. They've got Erin's life in their hands, haven't they? I mean, she had those poor people's lives in their hands. She didn't give a shit. But the jury are probably nicer people, and they've got Erin's life in their hands. And if they do eventually come up with a guilty verdict, they'll want it to be because they thought about it a lot, because they looked into everything, they thought about everything. They didn't just make a knee-jerk reaction, oh, she's guilty. And the same with not guilty, really, because I can't see how they're going to come up with not guilty. I don't think there'll be enough of those jurors saying not guilty. There may be a couple of them, but I don't think there'll be enough for it to make that kind of difference. I think, anyway, I don't know, because I'm not there. I'm just giving my opinion. I'm speculating. That's what I can do as a YouTuber. I'm not on the jury. I can speculate as much as I want. And my speculation would be, I think it's more likely there's more people thinking she's guilty, but of course they've been told they've got to have a unanimous verdict. So I cannot see. I think they'll just be going through everything. And I do feel if it goes another couple of days, that's more against Erin again. Or maybe I'm just being hopeful, because I think she did it. I am 100% convinced she did it.
That courtroom again, the media, lawyers, as well as Erin Patterson. And then the moment we've all been waiting for. Will Erin Patterson walk out the front doors of the courtroom a free woman, or will she be given a free ride to prison?
Well, that is a lot on the shoulders of those jurors. Thank you so much, Sam.
Yeah, and as it comes up to the weekend, like we talked about this a little bit yesterday, the jury, they're human beings. They're coming up to the weekend. They're not necessarily going to want to be in the hotel another weekend, are they? They've got their families, got their lives. They've already been 2 months on this trial. Now, maybe there'll be some people on that jury be thinking, oh, I'd love another weekend in the hotel. That's possible as well, isn't it? But personally, I think as the weekend comes up, they'll be wanting to get that verdict out more. That's just you again. Thing is, they're jurors, but they are human beings as well. You wouldn't want to. Be there longer, would you? No, Yvonne, they can't. They can't decide manslaughter. It's murder. 3 counts of murder and 1 of attempted murder. There's no other possibility. No other possibility. So let's see if we can find another video. Oh, actually, let's see this. So this is the Daily Mail's covering it live, and they were doing a live blog, but there was nothing to say until no decision in the Erin Patterson trial today. So the Patterson trial has concluded for the day, with jurors yet to return a verdict. And they will continue deliberating tomorrow in Australia, of course, which is about 3 o'clock in the morning, as far as Spanish time is concerned, at 10:30 a.m. So I did set my alarm last night for 3 o'clock, just because I thought maybe they would come straight in. I mean, you don't know, do they? Might thought about overnight, gone into the jury room and all said, right, what do you think? And they all went guilty or not guilty. So it could have happened instantly. So I did set my alarm for 3 o'clock this morning. And I just, when I couldn't find anything, I just went back to sleep. But every time I sort of woke up, I'm waking up a lot because it's hot, you know, so you don't sleep through the night. Every time I woke up, just have a look on the phone, see any result. Anyway, so that's what, let me just, so I'm going to just read a little bit of what the Mail said yesterday. Now, we went through it all. I'm not going through everything, but there were some things that when I had a quick look at this, they've got, because of course we're getting all the information from a reporter, so their reporter is saying it slightly differently, that's all. So yeah, you've had, apparently Justice Beale said, gave them the instructions they need to follow to avoid a mistrial. You've had a long day, you deserve a break. I hope it's a pleasant break this evening. And he warned the jurors not to second guess the instructions of the jury keepers. I'll be making sure no one interferes with you. It would be an awful shame if you make an error with the jury keeper's instructions and as a result we have a mistrial. So it's very important that they do everything right, isn't it? Oh my God, it would be terrible to have a mistrial. And everybody have to go through it all again too. Oh my God, the thought of it. And Justice Beale said he will be at the court while the jury deliberates. Oh, and the jurors that were balloted out was juror 105 and juror 106. Gosh, I'd be raging if I were them. I really would. I mean, maybe they'll be relieved. I wouldn't be relieved. I'd want to see it through to the end. Once I'd started with it, I'd want to see it through to the end. And I would be very angry at not being, I mean, not angry, you know, because what can you do? But I wouldn't be happy. I wouldn't be a happy bunny about being sent home. I would want to be there at the end of it all. And then the remaining members of the jury made an oath or affirmation not to discuss the trial with anybody else other than fellow jurors. And Justice Beale said, I will state the affirmation and then I will ask you to say, I do so declare and affirm, you and each of you solemnly and sincerely declare and affirm that you will not discuss with any other person other than a member of this jury any matter relating directly or indirectly to the evidence in this trial or the deliberations, Justice Beale's associate said. Please repeat one by one, beginning at the end of this front row. I do so declare and affirm. And each remaining juror agreed that they would. And then that was yesterday. They were retired to deliberate. A full 15 they stopped. And of course, there was no verdict yesterday, no verdict today. Will there be one tomorrow? So, apparently, according to Justice Beale, the jury were warned not to guess while deliberating. Do not guess. Only consider the evidence. Oh, God, they had another little laugh here. Justice Beale then described the trial like a jigsaw puzzle, which prompted laughter from the jury. Oh, you know, it's too, I don't like all this laughing. Not in a triple murder case. You know, it just seems all these laughs that the jury are having. I'm sorry, I don't like it. So it's not a joke. It's not a joke. It's serious. So there's Simon. Wonder what he thinks of it all. Because he won't be able to say anything at the moment. Thing is, nobody can say anything at the moment. But as soon as this trial finishes, whatever the verdict is, there's Colin Mandy and his legal team. Whatever the verdict finally is, you can bet then there'll be like a massive sort of unpicking of it all. Simon will be talking, Ian will be talking, the witnesses will be talking. So yeah, there's still a lot to come, isn't there? Exactly. Not a laughing matter. Hi, Barry. Right, I want to just have it. So these death cap mushrooms, they're massive. As I was saying earlier, I don't think there's any way let's have a look at this. The notorious death cap mushroom. Oh gosh, oh God, look at all those insects. So this mushroom starts killing you before you even realise it. I think that was the scary thing about this, or the scariest thing, isn't it? That this mushroom, they were okay for a couple of hours after they ate it. Takes a while, starts killing you, and then by the time it's realised that that's your problem, it's hard to deal with it then. It's a miracle Ian is alive. Miracle. Ian was kept alive by God, I think, just so that he could tell his story. Anyway, we'll see.
As humans, we have an innate attraction to nature, a childlike curiosity. But beware of what you find in the shadows. In Northern California, something deadly is popping up in the forest. This poisonous mushroom is known as the death cap.
So for those of you that are in America, so this is California, they're talking about it. So it's not only in Australia. So it's quite distinctive, isn't it? This is the mature mushroom. It's massive.
The forest was just down. The forest was just.
These young ones.
The forest was just damp. Perfect.
Donna Davis went collecting mushrooms one day in 2014.
It's very magical when you're up there, and really is quite like a treasure hunt. Felt confident enough that I knew what I was doing.
But she didn't recognize the telltale cup-shaped tissue that grows on the bottom of the deadly mushroom.
So look how big they are. They're big. You know, honestly, I just don't understand about foraging. I know a lot of people do it and they like doing it, got popular during COVID. But, you know, just that to me, that's had all insects all over it. God knows what's weed on it, or, you know, it's disgusting. I just don't want to eat that. Sorry, not interested. I'll get my mushrooms from Tesco, thank you.
And she mistook young egg-shaped death caps for something she could eat.
I made mushroom soup. It was amazingly delicious.
Delicious.
One cap has enough toxin.
Oh my God, because that is exactly what those guests said, didn't they? It was delicious. The meal was delicious. That was the actual word that they used. So she's just said the soup she made was delicious.
To kill a human being.
The next morning, I took a little nap.
For the first 6 to 12 hours, you feel okay. But meanwhile, the toxin is quietly destroying your liver cells.
Oh.
The next thing I knew.
6 to 8 hours you feel okay. Now, don't forget, Erin said she started feeling ill earlier, didn't she? Because she was pretending to be ill, wasn't she? You know, but 6 to 8 hours before you even know. And in that meantime, in those 6 to 8 hours, that mushroom has been destroying your liver. Do you remember they said in the autopsy report that particularly Heather's liver was dead? You know, it just stopped functioning. But she was too ill to give her a liver transplant. That's why she died. She could have survived perhaps if she would have been strong enough to have a liver transplant. But by then she was so poorly anyway, they decided they just couldn't take a chance. But There was nothing they could do for her.
I was in emergency care.
Death caps spread the same way other mushrooms do. Just like this harmless oyster mushroom, a death cap shoots hundreds of thousands of spores into the air. The spores drift into the shadow of California live oaks, where they grow filaments that attach to the tree's roots. Each fungus...
Yeah, because they are fungus at the end of the day. So they grow near oak trees particularly. So if you are someone who likes foraging, I don't understand it, but each to their own. There's probably a lot of things I do that you don't understand. But don't go near oak trees. Please, honestly, don't. Or don't pick mushrooms near oak trees.
This filament is about the width of a human hair. Under the microscope, you can see how the white fungus envelops the tree's pink root tips. This is called a mycorrhizal relationship. The fungus feeds on the tree's sugars and gives it nutrients in exchange. It's good for the fungus and for the tree. And that's how the death cap snuck into California from Europe on the roots of a decorative shrub in the 1930s. Researchers aren't sure why the death cap has evolved to be so lethal. What exactly is it protecting itself from? Humans, we're just collateral damage in some battle that we don't understand.
But did you see?
Scientists like Anne Pringle from the University of Wisconsin. Scientists like Anne Pringle.
Enormous. Enormous it is. They're massive. I tell you what, Erin Patterson, she knew they were death cap mushrooms.
From the University of Wisconsin are doing genetic testing on death caps to see how long they live. If death caps have a short lifespan, it might be enough to pluck them from the ground so the spores can't spread. Less opportunity for people to eat them.
That's massive.
I remember closing my eyes and seeing like this beautiful path. And all of a sudden everything got really dark. And I thought, oh, I'm not supposed to go down this path.
Donna survived, but death caps killed 2 people in California that year.
God.
It is really brutal. Nature has its own rules.
Do you love seeing weird and wonderful scenes from the natural world?
No.
Subscribe.
No, I don't. Sorry, no offense, but I don't, so I won't be subscribing. But it was an interesting video about death cap mushrooms anyway. So, okay, I've got to go. I've got some Spanish classes. I've got to go and teach some Spanish. But I'll be back as soon as the buzzer descends, or maybe even before that. I'll definitely be back every morning. I'll be saying something about this case. We'll stick with it. And of course, if the buzzer sounds in the middle of the night and I get to hear about it, I may be back for that as well, even in the middle of the night. But make sure you know that was something that, people quite often say they don't get notifications. But the only reason you wouldn't get notifications, let's see if I go to that channel actually. Now, let's go to this person's channel. Deep Look. So what you've got to do to make sure you get all notifications is, so you've not only to subscribe, I'm going to do it on this channel, but I will be unsubscribing because it's got too many insects on it for me and horrible things. But not only you have to subscribe, but then you have to press this bell and you have to press not personalized, not none, not unsubscribe. You have to press all. Now I've pressed all. Every time a new video comes out on this channel, I should be notified of it. So that remember to do that, because if you don't do that, you won't get all notifications. Even if you subscribed, you may never get any notifications. So you have to go, let's take it off and then do it again just to show you. So you go into the bell, press all. You have to make sure all is pressed, okay? And then that if you still don't get notifications, I'm going to unsubscribe because I don't really want those videos, too many insects. Yeah. So if you want to get all notifications, you must do that. I agree, Jane. Hi, Sean. I agree completely. I think there's no question that Erin knew exactly about those mushrooms. So I just hope that's something the jury are discussing. Well, they can't be discussing it now because they've out of the jury room, but I'm hoping that's something they will have been discussing. You know, they'll have been discussing all the things we do, I expect. Anyway, I've got to go. So thank you for watching. Don't forget, as I say, like, subscribe, press the alarm, notifications, all notifications if you don't want to miss notifications. Thank you so much. I'll see you really soon in the next video. God bless Ian, Gail, and Heather, and Don. I'll see you really soon in the next video, and until then, may your God go with you. Thank you.